us. Right. Okay, I don't see any other ones out there. Okay. All right, so we
Enough
will
to be dangerous.
call the meeting to order at 5:02. And start with a roll call, so we'll go virtual first. Yeah,
Ann Schmidt, member. Hi.
and we'll go right to left. Michelle?
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Ray Rafferty, Vice Chair.
Very done, Chair.
Kristen DeSante, member.
I'm also a member.
All right. So, the first order of business is approval of minutes. And
I move we approve the minutes as they're proposed in the draft.
Second it.
all right, any discussions on it? It was in the handout. I didn't see anything kept to. All right, we'll call that for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. No, all in favor, none opposed, none abstained. So the next item is. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do here. Pull up my cheat sheet. All right, public communications. Now, there's a couple of things quasi-public where, Tom, I'm gonna say the Penny Island kind of was public communications from Mary Gardner.
Yes.
You know, she's right by the town. You want to quickly summarize
One
that?
of the one of the things that as I've been researching easements, because that was one of my action items is looking at the easements. I came across a lot of land records that I've been working on the vault. But one of the things I found was that in researching the 6 Penny Island area, because there's some state properties there and there's an easement around in that area, is that I went to the state website, their GIS, the state's GIS website, and they have the 6 Penny Island and also the other island that's in the middle of BB Cove. It's 1 acre. And when I go pull out the details of theirs, they actually have the deed for it. The state has the deed posted on their website and everything, and it is isolated. So and then I go to the town website and it's blank. It's just, there's no information on it. There's no PIN number assigned or anything. And so I took that information and put it all in an email and sent it to the assessor's office, because I asked Noah first, and he said, no, you got to go to the assessors, not to the GIS folks. And I didn't know if there was an error in the GIS, but he said, no, it's an assessor issue. So I passed it to the assessor, and she got very promptly back within the same day saying, the reason that there's no PIN assigned is that if you go take a look at the shellfish maps, okay, they actually issue leases, and the lease encumbers that whole area, or a vast majority of that area, so that they did not assign a PIN to that. So I'm kind of scratching my head, says, I know that you get money the town gets money for the leases, whereas if it was state property, they wouldn't be getting. So that's the priority is from a money perspective from the towns, that this is a taxable thing. And so there's a separate PIN that's assigned to that lease, which doesn't show up in NOAA's GIS because it's not land. Okay, it's really for the shellfishing area. And so the question is, from a conservation perspective, that's an acre of open space that's not in our inventory, because the shelf. And so I asked, when I query her what needs to be done next, the assessor says you as the Conservation Commission need to go to the Shellfish Commission and go resolve it. Okay, so that's where we're at.
So having heard the story of woe, the kind of my was number one, first of all, it's less than an acre, it may disappear in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But But
Little one will take care of
the
it.
overlap of the lease to the land area is even less than that. So the concern, now think about our concern from a conservation point of view. Number one, make sure somebody doesn't do things they shouldn't be doing on close protected land. So, my thought was to have the Conservation Commission, in fact, reach out to the Shellfish Commission, and later on, I'll talk about a cross-commission meeting. I think we haven't had one like 3 years ago, when you were 3-4 years ago, we were there. But to go and say, look, I think that the key thing is to ensure that the lease is edited, to ensure that they don't do any onshore activity of any sort. I mean, it's for shellfish. They shouldn't be on the land. They shouldn't be storing pots there. They shouldn't be doing other stuff there. So, my kind of view is the legal harassment, and I shouldn't say harassment, the legal issues and the potential of getting conflicts and taxing and not, it's like, let's just make sure the land's protected as the first priority and avoid all the other stuff. So that's my thought on it.
The land is protected. The deed clearly says that it's state property for the DEP, and that the DEP is actually identified as 6 Penny as a part of the 6 Penny Wildlife Management Area. So,
But when I lease property from the
Yeah.
state, I now can do stuff on it regardless of what the other side says protected. So I'm just,
well, but the error is in the lease that the
right.
town's leasing out state property.
So what my suggestion is to correct the lease,
Yeah.
not necessarily try and pervert GIS and the maps and things and the taxes and 2 different parcels. It's like, there's other things that I think we want no one in the town in IT to invest in, which we'll get to versus that. So anyway, let's throw it open for discussion, so we can get through this pretty quick.
Years ago, there was an understanding that there was private property on 6 Penny, besides what the state.
There's I think 2 or 3 parcels.
Right. So for those of you thinking about the whole thing, it's not entirely all this state owned.
Now, but
And-
the 1 Penny Island, that's all we're talking about. It's not the 6 Penny. We're talking about the 1 Penny. If you take a look
Is that
here
the one in
on the
the,
map, this is 6 Penny Island and this is 1 Penny Island.
right? Well, 6 Penny Island, there's been discussions in the past in regards to its use because of the private ownership of a northern section of it. And at a time, hunters were out there, mostly bird hunting. And question was, well, they don't really use it that much, or hasn't been much used. Does it get folded into the rest of the state property? So I didn't know. So you've answered the question. It's got some private land on it. We've never had much of a discussion about, I think, the island that's out in the middle, 1 Penny. I've not really heard anybody bring it up for anything.
What's the elevation of it? I mean, it's gotta be,
Well, it's visible. It's
Above water.
it's
Probably-
Right.
but there is, if you take a look at over time, the water level
It's getting
has come
smaller.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gotten
I
smaller.
mean, how much smaller is it? It may be just like, it's
It's
like.
only
you said.
half a cent now.
Yeah, a farthing.
But irrespective of that, the state has they know exactly where, on their GIS, it's all put in there properly based on everything. So
So the question is, what do we as the commission want to do, if anything? Nothing, that's a vote?
I would vote for nothing.
Weren't they suggesting?
I would recommend that we send a letter over or bring it up at the chairman's meeting and saying, hey, you've got this issue here. From our perspective, the town should not be leasing out state property. You didn't do a good job on setting up
is
your
it-
lease.
Is it,
Boundaries.
it's a bed that's north of 6 Penny?
No, it's inside It's inside, there's a rectangular leased area
Yep.
that it covers includes 2/3 of the island. So to the
But
east
it's
side of,
shell fishing, so they're not gonna use the land except for maybe to get off.
So in other words,
Shellfishing's in the
someone
water.
somebody who
agree.
drew the map, the
they just
shellfish.
did a lazy job and put the coordinates in there, and they ended up covering some of the island.
That's just a technical.
Oh,
we just
okay,
need to
so in
adjust.
a sense, right, you just answered the question, that we think of a shellfish bed as somewhat square,
Right.
and then the island is round, but
Yes,
they just had 2 points and they drew a line through it.
right.
Um,
And so 2/3 of the island got sucked into
lease
the,
agreement.
lease.
We don't know. That's. I mean, it seems like the least we could do.
so if there was a correction made to the boundaries on the lease, that way then that would correct it, so it would free up that land to have a pin assigned to it. And have the deed and everything in the GIS system. That's all responsibility of the
and
assessor's
the
office.
property that the lease covers on Sixpenny is not part of the private.
No, it's all state.
It's all state.
The whole island in the middle there is state property.
Any comments, Ann?
Nope.
Nope.
No, sorry.
Right, is anyone, I mean, whatever we do, I would look for a motion to do something or do nothing. So is there someone like to make a motion on this?
So do we need a motion or just consensus that you're gonna bring this up at the next meeting? And then if we have to go formal, are they willing to, at the next chairman's meeting, you can bring this up informally if they're interested?
It's just a little technical error that needs to be corrected by the right person.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem
I don't know if it's a necessary
worth spending a lot of time on.
actionable item here for us at this time.
Well, if the state owns the whole thing, it's not really, it's the state's issue, right?
Well, no, it's a town issue, because the state clearly has their deed in place, they have filed it, it's recorded, they've done all that they have to do. So the town in its execution of its shellfish commission and the assessor's office are out of sync. And I identified it because of our due diligence of monitoring all the dedicated open space in the town, whether it's
Okay,
city, town, state, property.
so then I recommend you draft up a little letter that Larry then can take to the other chairman and say, hey, we have this issue if you want to deal with it.
Well, everything's in the
Just
email.
gotta
He has,
just-
of course,
oh, okay.
he has a copy of the email
So
already.
then I'd say you just handed it off to the right person.
Yeah. I think he's just looking for consensus that everybody's gonna do.
I guess one of the questions I would put on the floor is when you go to the Shellfish Commission, if indeed this is a shellfish bed that's been leased out for 1,000 years,
I don't know
and
where you find
because,
that.
most, I did the history of it, I'm not sure of, but I know in behind where I work, in the Paquonic River, in Baker's Cove, out in front of Groton Long Point, some of the beds have actually been turned over to the local high school.
Yes,
Uh,
they're leased to, there's actually a map that has all these things. It tells you
Right,
who the
so,
owner is. who the
Suggesting
leasing
is this thing, perhaps the marsh has changed in the years that the lease has been in effect. And therefore has grown in that portion of the edge of the marsh
Well, maybe when it was set up, maybe it didn't protrude right there. That's a
Right.
thought.
at some point. But having said that, that doesn't necessarily answer the question.
Yeah.
But I think a question to the Shellfish Commission to see if there's any concern on their part.
So without objection, I will, at the cross commissioners meeting, attempt to hand this off to the Shellfish Commission.
Fine,
Is that the, okay.
that
Yeah.
works.
That works. Okay, so that was the only public communications. I don't see anybody out that I had per se. There's other stuff going on, but okay. So the next item of business is the open space stewardship workbooks, action log, etc. Now, there's a couple, before we dive into your stuff. There's a couple of things I think that's popped up. So one is, which you have brought up, that we have in there an approved stewardship plan for the Maple Glen area. But unfortunately, they haven't quite closed the books on the legal stuff. So this is kind of like what we just talked about, is that we're kind of a little bit ahead of our skis. And I guess my view is just let it sit and track until it does get approved. I don't see an issue. I mean, I haven't heard of an issue from the planning office, other than they haven't signed, everything's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet, even though the assumption is it is by us.
Just give you a little background on this. Back last summer, 20 acres at the corner of Gungy and the Navy housing area, at the end of the Navy house, on the east end of the Navy housing area, just before Briar Hill Road. There's a 20-acre parcel that was being given to the town for as open space set aside. Okay, the town council officially approved it on the 3rd of August of 2021. Here we are 11 months later, and you go to the GIS and it still hasn't been processed. So I queried the planning office here, Mr. Reinert, by email, says, did I miss something here? Or is there an issue? Is there a problem? What's the story for information purposes? He got, again, promptly back saying that there's issues with the deed and that the town has not yet to accept it. So it's still, he didn't go into any more detail.
But he thought it would be resolved. I mean, but
It's 11 months later.
yeah, I know. But the point is just, so we got to be a little cautious. We're not quite there yet. We're ways away from actually doing stewardship, but that's just, we got to keep that in mind. The other thing in terms of, and this one has not been approved, is I guess we call it the Flanders Road sections.
Well, what's the name of it? It's not Flanders Road. The other one, knowing Ledger Road.
No, Ledger
Ledger
Road,
Road.
yeah.
This is
Yeah,
a
the
Wolf
Wolf
Road.
Road, yeah, the clues were, but one of the things is that there's that portion, the Flanders Road portion that's is on the market being peddled.
Yeah.
We have in our plan.
Right.
And I think as we get, before that's approved, a couple of things have to
Right.
happen. One is we may have to exclude that.
I've already have a draft prepared with that
Okay.
exclusion.
Okay. So-
Recognizing, and that new draft also has the new MS4 sheet in it.
Oh, good.
So.
I haven't
don't-
gone public on that one because I'm waiting to hear, but it sounds like the churn on this Wolfbrook isn't going that's fast either. So
It's moving, but not with alacrity. So the other thing is I've been kind of bouncing back and forth on the disposition of property. And I happened to just get it like 20 minutes ago. And the answer in terms of the status from Bert, let me kind of bring that up. Bert. So I had said, the town manager was going to call he's calling a property review team. Right? Obviously, we're not part of that, which is another question entirely. But they did have a meeting. And there were some questions on easements. Right? So I replied while I was sitting here. I said, well, just did a study on easements. Maybe we already have the data you're looking for. I'm not sure. But it's kind of working through it. I mean, this whole thing about when you have a piece of property, the Flanders Road piece with part, how do you decide, are you going to sell it? Are you going to protect it? Are you going to do whatever with it? So we're trying to get that going. It's kind of going, but very slowly.
well, no, the town council has a separate subcommittee that's met twice, 2 or 3 times. I've listened in on 1 or 2 of them. And that they are interested in redefining Mr. Bird's theme. But they want to control that.
That's
town council.
one thing. This team is doing this, so they're
The
operating,
old team is still,
they're still going,
Yeah.
right? Versus, I agree, the town council wants something else. So I guess my point is ongoing, but we're in the kind of crosshairs between the town planning, town council, and what we're trying to do is identify, our job of inventory property. So that's kind of a status. I don't have any resolution on either front, other than, at least things are happening as we're moving forward. So anyway, that's that. Let me go back to,
Might ask, Tom, what is the most recent interest of the town council to get involved with this particular committee?
there are new counselors, in particular, Mr. Westervelt and Mr. McBride, are interested in having, that the town council should have an earlier input into and they're also with Portia as the other third person on that team, to have they want a complete review of how that team is established and and their actions, because I believe, from my perspective of listening to the tone of where they're going, is that they feel that the town council should be more involved early on, based on the record of the problems that they've had with oral school.
and the data center property.
In the data center.
And
So,
they're getting it at the last minute, when it's already kind of all the pieces in
Parceled
place,
out.
and then it's coming, and then it explodes.
Well,
So
but this is, I don't know if this would ever, the stuff I see on the property review team is property that's been held for such a long time. And whether or not what they should be doing with it, and should they be, which from our perspective, some of this properties, we've been kind of aggressive in our inventory, saying that you haven't done anything with it in 40 years. You ought to be putting this in the dedicated open space part, group.
Right.
so we're kind of on the edges, but there's a lot of positives.
Looks like we got something moving though.
Things are, it's kind of like
Yeah.
poking the bear. So I kind of
Yeah,
feel
so
like I'm
somebody's paying
poking the
attention.
bear.
We started poking and somebody's paying
Well,
attention.
I got some feedback, I won't say from who or where, but like, why did they open up all this open space for? Because I think the town didn't know what it had, and once it finds out what it has, it may say, oh, well, let's sell this to a developer. So in other words, why didn't you just leave well enough alone? And like, I felt like we had a responsibility. We don't know how we're
Well,
supposed to manage it.
It's our
We don't-
major responsibility is to document.
don't know
report,
what we
indicate-
have,
Right,
How are we supposed to manage it? It's like a responsibility. It's not a choice. It's like a.
it's not a choice.
Yeah.
It's our only specific job when you read our chart.
Right, I would definitely advocate that in your discussions with other people that are,
Oh, it's like
if you're
it's-
representing the Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
We're doing our job.
We're doing our
I'm trying
job.
to
And
figure out-
we're not trying to advocate, we're advocating for trying to get to more open space, not less.
Exactly.
Can I ask how this person learned about this?
This is a person that knows what's going on. Let's put
Okay.
it that way. They're following everything.
Three people come to mind.
Well, there's more than that. You know. By proxy.
Yeah. All right, so back,
But this has been the genesis of looking at open space in the town, saying, what does the town already have? And as just Tom said, what are you doing with it? If you have,
if you're not doing anything with it,
right,
let's move it and put.
and if you don't have a developer who's been knocking on the door to say, I'd
Yeah.
like to have a discussion on this property,
It sounds
Then
like people are
protect
afraid
it.
of going the other direction is what they're afraid of, that once
That's
you
what- exactly.
identify, they're afraid.
That
of
Once it's, the flag is raised, oh, by the way, you know.
What we have, oh, we could do something else with that.
Exactly. That's.
And that's, you know what, that's a valid concern.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
except I think if, at least I can think of one person who serves on one of the commissions in town, probably knows every single property, and I think you know who I'm talking
every
about.
acre.
Every acre. So if this person can do it, a developer coming in,
Yep.
There are no secrets.
Right.
You can't. So anyway, so we're doing our job. which then takes us to the next part of work through all, I think all the back stuff on the properties themselves. Now we're into the stewardship of said properties.
Okay. So I apologize, I didn't get this to you ahead of time, but it's pretty basic. So what I put out, and Larry has the electronic version that you can give to
Can
them
put
for
it up.
the, and they'll obviously go into the, whatever. So basically, this is based primarily on Avalonia's current one, because I still haven't gotten anything new from them or anything from GOSA, but it's enough to get us started. So I manipulate a little bit, and we need to decide, is this the kind of stuff we want in our manual? Do we want more stuff? Do we want less? And so what I have so far from Deb in specific situations and what to do, she said to add encroachment to the list, and then to ask Mark Berry about other things they currently run across on town-owned properties that happens. And I'm guessing what to do is mostly going to be, contact the town, and so the answer, there may not be a reason to have a special section on what to do with different types of things, but certainly a list of the kinds of things to look for when you look at the property.
You can't imagine every contingency, so there just
No.
has to be kind of like, wow, this
The
doesn't look right.
Comments, right, but there's common things that like this. So the other things that came up during the discussion that I've already thought about was in the message to the volunteers, up in there to include maybe a whole separate section and introducing, what Public Works currently is and does with the properties that they are in charge of, just to kind of get an idea of here's what they do, and then what our volunteers will do to kind of fit into that system. So I already have an idea to add Public Works on there. And then and then about a note about reporting and paperwork, that's going to be mostly, referring to like what Larry said, you if you see something, you do what the Public Works website says. So this is hopefully going to be a
Talking about
lot.
Parks and Rec.
And Parks and Rec, yeah, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, as far as I know,
Anyway, sorry about that.
are the ones that
Parks and Rec.
have monthly
Yep.
reports that they
Okay.
ask volunteers to do.
So basically, it really is mostly about explaining what the town's processes already are with the different groups that are responsible for different things, and then how what we're asking people to do will fit into those currently. And then
One thing that I see on this thing, situations would be encampments.
Yeah,
okay,
I was thinking the same thing, like, if you come across, or even
It's
just,
kind of an encroachment, but encroachment is like a driveway and that kind of stuff, where an encampment is somebody
yeah, we
living
actually
there.
we ran across one
really
of those.
living, even just camping for
Yeah.
the night, I don't think
Yeah.
that's allowed
Yeah,
either.
okay, good. So then, and then like ongoing property stewardship, so kind of listed the kinds of things that are done. And I may not have everything, like the stuff that's all the common stuff on our checklist. I'll make sure that that's all on there. And then I added the MS4 audit every 5 years that we talked about last month. And then, do we want to keep something like major storm reconnaissance? We want to keep something like basic situation management. So those are things that are typical to the land conservancies that we may or may not care about keeping on ours. So it really is, do we want to have more? Is there something about ours that's different that we want to have other topics, or do we need them or whatever?
The one thing that I would see is in you ongoing property stewardship, you have posting boundaries. Right now, you're gonna find that there's two buckets. One is that there's actually town-owned parcels where in the planning process, they've been told to mark the boundaries with some type of like large posts and stuff. I know we have that up in Crosswinds, and there's a number of other ones I've come across, and there'll be a big 12 by 12 wooden block, and then like 6 feet of railing in the two directions that go. You got it up in Pendleton, and up in up on Haley Road there. There's a number of these places around the town where they've been marked because that's what was just the standard thing for the developer had to put those in. Okay. That's one thing, but you don't see anything other than that. So
Right,
there's-
so it may more be, once they know what their current thing is, just to check on it, to see that things are still what they're supposed to be or whatever. Like we won't be having people doing it, the town would do it. but then you're gonna take a look at them when they're there.
But I didn't know if you were trying to advocate that we have. some
No,
type of,
no,
you
no,
know,
this, no.
Gosa and
Yeah.
Avalonia put little signs up and stuff, so
Right.
marking their boundaries.
We
and
can, I mean, we
stuff.
can talk about that if we want to, but I'm not sure that we'd want to go to that level of adding that, but we can talk about it. And I mean, all this stuff is, oh, this is just the beginning of writing this stuff down. So everything in here is going to be open for discussion. So,
I think, to go back to about marking boundaries, that it may be a volunteer effort, because I don't see the town on their agenda list. I can't think of any of the properties that they've really,
if we want to, I mean,
Right.
that's, if we want to, yeah.
Problem there is you almost need a surveyor to go with you to figure out where the boundary is, which gets a little bit problematic.
Well, I tell you, if you use the field maps app on your phone, it's probably gonna get you to 98% there, okay? Because I found that as I go on the GOSA boundary walks, and I'm sure Avalonia is doing, from my discussions with guys that do both Avalonia and GOSA, that they're using that type of app, and it's well within
Close
the
enough.
accuracies, yeah.
Okay. So that's something that we could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and then what's the name of the app?
It's called Field Maps. It's free, and what it does, it takes the the town of Groton GIS, puts it, you can pull up that map, and then it gives you a blue dot that says you're within,
You're here.
you're here on that parcel.
So we would just basically describe how to use that app in
Yeah,
that
right.
section.
Right, that's, I think that's the discussion.
Okay, so,
That's adequate for boundary
right.
verification.
So the big question is, is there, and again, not to answer right now necessarily, but to think about it. Is there something, and I know, so yeah, I can see what Larry's got up on the screen. There's one for you here, Ann, but it's paper and you'd have to I can't push it through the screen to get to you.
So she can see it.
Okay. I can see it.
So this is the beginning of that process. And so it's basically what else, if anything, we went on there. And obviously, as we go along, we can always, something comes up, we think about, we can add it. So it's nothing. But I guess the big question is this kind of what we want as our manual? Is this,
Yeah, I don't think we want to overdo things. I mean, it really should be. Brevity is there, but specific pointers and how-tos, I think is the
Yeah, just
the
on
route
maps.
here. So now
Unless
to
you're out
do,
in the
to
middle of
take,
water.
to start fleshing this out,
GPS at all, there's no service.
to formalize a special subcommittee. Now we're back into the.
right now it's time, now we can take this and get a subcommittee to work with it, yes.
Okay, so I think that's the next action here is to get a.
And obviously I volunteered on the
She's
committee
on, so
since
we
it's
got
my,
one,
since it's
so we need two more
my responsibility.
members.
And I would love for Conk to be on the subcommittee if he's willing to do
Yeah,
it.
that's no problem. I will gladly volunteer.
You are a glutton.
Well, he's got the best information, so.
No, I agree. I got the information.
Tom gets it done. Don't look at me, I'm busy.
Who else was?
Just do a
this-
I'm a
pollinators.
committee of
Something
one
that
on the
you wanna do or
pollinators,
not?
not for nothing.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
So we're looking at you,
Oh,
Ed.
she's conveniently
Oh.
muted. There,
Is this
you're
something that
muted.
you would want to do or not?
I can probably help.
I mean, Tom and I, could- the subcommittee could be the two of us, we could get started.
Well, I mean, you need, part of this is writing and assembling and just keeping track of it, not, so I think there's research, there's parts. I think as parts of any group, they do their individual parts, right?
Right.
So my plan would be to take this,
Tom does everything.
I'll take this and extract as much as I can that makes sense from what I have from Avalonia.
Yeah.
And then I need to look at the website for Parks and Rec and of course, to see what they have that's relevant and try to bring that in. So I can do that first piece. And then say, okay, this is as far as I'm gonna get on my own. Now I want some collaboration.
All right, so we have formed a special subcommittee of special people. Michelle, Ann, and Tom, that will begin the process of fleshing this out. And I would think as you start to do that, guys, you can still then, I guess, even though we can't, you can't have more than 3 meeting at a time, but if there's some piece of this that could be parceled out to other members, then I think that's something that this special subcommittee should do. You know, do you have all these things? Oh, hey, can somebody help us on hunting and deer stands? I know nothing on hunting and deer stands, but if there's anybody here that does, then subcontract that out if you will.
Well, I think honestly, between Avalon and Gosa, what they already have documented,
Yeah, they should have it.
they have most of it between them and the town's websites with what the town does. Assuming that it's all public, same what they do.
The biggest factor that I don't, that all this looks great. The one thing that I don't still, and I don't even know who to point to, is policy as far as on the volunteers and what the scope of their work capability is within the county insurance policies.
I was just gonna bring that up.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we really, and if you could pull that string is the one thing. Yeah, I don't mind.
Who would I pull? Wait,
I
what's-
don't know. That's my
I
problem.
would start with Mark Berry.
Okay.
Parks and Rec, because
Okay.
this will fall under his, not Public Works, but it'll fall under his bailiwick.
We kept saying, but everywhere I said public works should really be Parks and Rec.
Right.
All right, so what I'll do then is maybe,
Parks and Rec does some maintenance. I think maybe they do.
so what would make sense to me would be for us to get as much of this details as we can. Tom, you and me talk, and then us go together to Mark and sort of nail him down. What is he?
He does very good. I deal a lot with Mark because of the greenways and all that kind of stuff. And we give him a specific question, he'll go get an answer for it. So that's. the whole
Well,
thing.
I think we're gonna have a number of questions for him.
And that's fine.
But so we should do this stuff first.
Yeah.
And then have our list of questions
that's
for
fine.
Mark. And then run him, once we're at the point where we can't do anything else without his input, then send him the questions.
Okay. So going forward, we'll kind of have a standing section on the agenda where we'll look at statusing, et cetera. And some of these things can be done in part. In other words, I'm not sure we need to get everything done to be able to start making some progress.
No, I'm telling you, it's the first step is pulling the stuff that somebody else has already done. Right?
Well,
And
putting
fill
it
in-
down on paper.
Filling in the pieces, right, that already exist.
And the other, looking down here about tools,
Yes,
you might ask Mark how he handles that.
but yeah, that's gonna be another one. There's a lot of the questions is gonna be for him, is how he does that
Right.
stuff, yeah.
Because not only Avalonia, they have a shed.
Right.
to Work out of, and I think Gosa
It
has
has 2 trailers,
2 trailers. So
one in Ledyard and one in Groton.
Parks and Rec, who knows?
And we may have to limit what the volunteers can do to small tools or whatever. So we're gonna have
Bring
to
your own,
negotiate
right.
with Mark on what we can and can't have people do and adjust the manual accordingly.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and as we go along, at any time, if you think of other things, you can fire them to us or to Larry to get us or whatever.
All right, moving along there, we got the next 2 are kind of related, inventory update and the view update. So there was a series of exchanges and messages and meetings and things over the last month. The objective was to get the inventory more out there in the public domain, right? As I won't say Freedom of Information Act, but again, it's our one major job in getting it out there, which is the viewer. So we've settled on that. One of the things to get it over that hump of public access was to several things. One was for the current version, it's already been done out there, is to change where it says town-owned open space with facilities was renamed town-owned with facilities. Now, the whole thing was that this whole, and it gets to kind of easement, so this stuff ties together. So the point was that if I'm sitting there, whether it's a school property, I mean, the most clear example was what did they rename that? The Indian name.
Oh, the Sassacus
Sassacus,
Nature
yeah.
Preserve, which is part of the Kolonowski.
Right, so it was the
parcel.
school. And then they physically, they carved out in GIS, let's call it, what we would call an easement, that open space parcel. So now when you go, depending which map you look at, you go and you'll see, here's a facility, here's town-owned property with facilities, which is a school, and here's the part that quote protect. So that's kind of the path, we're following. And we're meeting last week, right?
Last Thursday.
week. And so Noah's off trying to figure out a way to technically, without too much investment, how to take those town-owned facility properties and talk about how much is carved out, which is protected versus not protected. Because if I'm sitting here, like, for example, right across the street where you have the treatment plant, most of that is right against the farm. And it's not, it's quote open space, but technically they could expand the facility into that area. So the question is how much is protected and not protected. So, that's part of what we're trying to struggle with. Not, getting to the point you said before, if you don't address it, then you're always exposed, right? And so it doesn't mean something's going to happen. Nobody's going to go sell that, do something else. It's really, we don't want, let's go clear out that property and put in town-owned, solar panel fields on that property. Now we want to keep the town from doing that. So that's one piece of it. The second piece was, the easements in general. So Tom's done, as he normally does, yeoman work in the bowels of the vaults. And there's been 3-4 iterations, I've lost track now.
Yeah.
Of the easement. So maybe, rather than me mouthing off, why don't you kind of give the easement status of where you're going, you can let up to.
We, as part of the open space conservation plan, I had an appendix, I think C or D in there, that listed 13 different parcels that we were aware of that had open space, that had some type of conservation easements on it. That was based on we didn't specify page numbers or anything in there. And so I started from that list, going into the vault now that I have access to it on a regular basis because of COVID. I wasn't able to get in there, spend any kind of sufficient time. But I researched all those. Half of those actually don't have easements, even though I assume that they did. Okay. But they were all on town properties anyhow, so it kind of there's a little bit of a wash there. So they're protected in another way, but not with the easement that I had thought. And then the other easements were in place, and I was able to get a page number, and I developed a complete list. That's what it put on page 6 of tonight's package. Is the list of the conservation easements, and also when I put CNR easements. CNR easements are basically a double protection on town property. So we have properties that have, and so I'm not going to go too much in those because they're just noted into the inventory, but really we're not going to track it as a separate easement because the entire parcel is already covered with that. But that being said,
Can you go back to CNR?
Yeah.
Because when I was going down through here, as I was looking at some of these different properties, and I said, what is CNR? I know Tom has got a code for it. So
the conservation and recreation. Okay. And that's what you're going to see, like the Sassacus is a good example of that. That's the one we just talked about, is that 38 acres of the state holds an easement on that parcel. but we've already said that that parcel is in our inventory for the entire 123 acres of that Klonowski School parcel. So it shows up multiple ways. That's what we're trying to figure out how to handle those within.
We got the oral school, which has 30 acres that the state has already put a conservation easement on.
Right.
But when you look at the parcel, it's one big parcel. So,
Right.
that's remember when I said that Noah was trying to figure out how do we do that? So there's a couple of schemes, I won't go into it, that allows us to kind of do a subset. So then when we do our calculation, we can say this really is protected open space, because that's where we're trying to end up.
But I focused on the areas where the town holds the easement, but it's a privately held parcel. Okay, good example here is, I'll use is the Whittles, 160 acre PA 490 parcel that's they're used for farming and orchards and everything else there. I think everybody's aware of what that parcel is. But the town has a conservation easement on 68 acres in 5 tracts within that parcel. Okay. That was all part of a court ordered when they got their special permit for their gravel operations for almost 900,000 cubic yards of gravel was part of they actually went to court over it, and the town ended up with getting these 68 acres. Part of the settlement was 68 acres of that 160 acres is now within, as a town holds a conservation easement on those tracts within that parcel.
Is this in your list here?
Yes, these are all included in here, on here. There, you're gonna see those typically, which one's on here? This may be a different, let me take a look. I'm looking for the,
I'm not seeing.
yeah, no, there it is, Whipple 67.22. It's about halfway down. It starts
Oh.
with pin 1790. Says Whipple. Whipple is the owner.
Ah.
He's the easement owner, and
Oh,
the
the
town of
67.
Grants is the easement holder.
Okay, 67.2 acres.
Yeah, at 1030 Noank Ledger Road. Old Mystic,
Right.
RU 40 PA 490. So that's half of the easement total acreage right off the bat, in that first parcel. Okay.
So taking the path of least resistance, the first thing, let's collect all of the list, which then would be in the tables, right, of the viewer tables. But then the discussion we had last week was, well, maybe we should prioritize this to say which ones we really want to get visible in the viewer, and then add it to it. And it, I think it was what, 4 to 6 of them were
Well, yeah, with
90% of the
yeah,
acreage?
90% of it is, if you take the top 7 or 6 or 7 acreages, you'll get 95% of all the total, the 130 acres. It's
Yeah.
only in 7
So-
parcels,
So to-
7 pin
We
numbers.
kind of keep the workload like this.
The problem, the real
Yeah,
workload is from Noah's perspective, is that while there's and about half of those actually have a map that they can at least go to kind of get some reference, is to get that information in an electronic format, he needs to go out and have it either surveyed and that data imported to him, or he physically goes out himself and does it.
So
So-
you need a GPS lat long specific.
Yeah, right, and about half even of those top 5 or the top 7, about 3 or 4 of those are just words in the deed.
Really?
Yes, there's not even a map that's tied to the conservation easement.
Right, so
There's a lot of work involved in those.
part of that just occurred to me here is, we have nothing here particularly with easements. We were working on the stewardship plans per se. But one of the things that struck us when we were looking at this was, once every, like MS4, once every 5 years, somebody should walk the easements and make sure that there's no encroachments, people have built stuff that they're still kind of keeping.
Yeah, well, the Avalonia book had it since I took them out because we didn't have any
Yeah,
plans
now-
that have to
now
go
we
with
have-
it.
Now I've got 35 of them.
Yeah, but we don't have any plans to go with them. We're not, we have a management plan.
But here again, what level do we go, here again, easements typically are small, okay, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah, well, the thought was for those 4, 5, 6, that for a subset of those easements, it would be kind of like a generic, my thought would be a generic plan.
Yeah.
Would be really just want to walk it to make sure
Yeah.
it's still there, that it hasn't been blocked off, that you have access to it, or, you
Some of
know.
these you don't really have, that Whipple's ones, you don't have access to them. You just,
I don't mean we as a people to do it, but as acting for the town in exercising the management of an easement,
right.
to go make sure that he didn't go like dig it up.
Yeah, no one's built a condo there.
Right.
With the condo lot. I mean, so it's an abbreviated easement
Upset.
subset plan that says, and I think it's more just like checking it, just to keep
Yeah,
people
okay.
honest.
Yep.
Right? I hate to say it that way, but, check, trust but verify.
Well, encroachment.
Well, encroachment is there, but it's on the easement side. And so we weren't specific on easements.
All right, and we can
Yeah.
add a little section about easements.
Yeah, I think, it's not like the big plans we're talking about. We're just saying is that let's not forget it, especially the 7 or so parcels that they want to, so that's kind of where that is.
Well, the thing, the manual won't specify this parcels, and what the manual say is if you're asked to look at an easement, this is what you would
These are
do.
the 5 things you do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think,
So Noah, right now, this is to wrap this up, that Noah has this list, has a little bit of, this is the list we went to Noah's meeting with last Thursday. Noah identified a few things to me and how to fix this thing up a bit, which I have done to him. And so he has a little bit of update, but from a parcel perspective, the number of parcels, this is the totality of the parcels.
This is great. Thank you, Tom.
So there's been a lot of research here. I'm not saying that I think this is probably a 90% solution. I think there's probably some other conservation easements out there that I just haven't stumbled across, because some of these I literally stumbled across just in,
I will get, it has the Deb Jones stamp of approval.
well, everything that Deb Jones has is included here. So
I have a quick question because Michelle knows about our easements, Avalonia's easements. I'm sorry. That one in particular, Chapman on Fishtown Road. Within the easement that Avalonia has, it defines what Avalonia's duties are. And whether it's a year or what can the owner do to the property or not, et cetera. Defined. So each person who gives an easement to Avalonia individualizes it. But for the town,
here's what I found after reading all these easements. I did read all these easements, all 35 of these, and there is a spectrum.
yes,
Okay.
okay,
There are some more well-written ones that are like 9 pages long,
right.
that go into that level of
Like
gory
2
detail.
acres.
But,
Like for 2 acres, right?
but no, I mean, for 0.2 acres,
Oh,
okay.
okay, I was being facetious, but it's even worse than that. It's
Oh, yeah, there are some of these easements that have a 9-pager that, well, see, what they do is they write 9 pages and then put 7 tracks in it. Okay, like all this stuff on Great Brook LLC, that's one easement, okay, 9 pages long, but it's applicable to all these different individual parcels. In this case, there are portions of parcels as opposed to the little one, which is tracks within a single PIN number. Okay, so you got both, you have a combination of both ways of dealing with it. Okay, the little one is I think what's coming here is that Deb in the planning department has come up with a more standardized thing over the years, and it's gotten better per se. Okay, and similarly, but you get some of these conservation easements that are fairly old, and it's just we have a conservation easement and it's like 3 lines. Okay, literally, there's not much to it.
Right.
Okay, so it basically it's by age. The older you are, the less detail there is. Okay.
So I guess the question on the floor is that since you've put the time in to read all of these, bless your heart, to do it, is there anything that you see that volunteers, for instance, would help the town to do according to what that easement is asking.
The easements are all directed to the property holder as far as on what you cannot do on my, on now that I hold this easement, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't, it's all can'ts to the property, to the owner. Okay, as opposed to what the town is going to be doing. Other than, example, like the Avalonian one says, oh, I only can come 3 times a year. I didn't see any of that in the town ones. We're basically the town has access to it all the time, okay? For inspection purposes and stuff.
That's,
But I know reading the Avalonian ones that are in here, some of them, they do have restrictions on them.
Well, and I guess that's what if you're gonna have somebody go inspect it,
Yeah.
they'd wanna know what the people aren't supposed to do,
Right.
so they can make sure it's not done.
Well, that's where, to be honest with you, if on the one, you'd want to have a copy of the easement
Right.
itself. And I haven't figured out how to get the town to print those up because we had Bruce and he was able to do that for me. He had access to the system and I don't have that access. They don't give it to me when I go in there. I can look at it online, but I hit the print button and nothing happens. Okay. So, but Bruce, when he was here, had that access. So as soon as we get, I'm sure Deb does too, but I haven't pulsed her on. I'm waiting for Bruce's replacement to be named. And, if by that, we're in no big rush for this. So
it's a lot.
I know we can,
if
the
we're gonna-
capability is there.
If we agree we're gonna inspect 7 easements because of their significance, then we would have the printouts of the Kansas.
Right, right. You're basically in the manual, it's saying, do the inspection based on the directions from the town or whatever.
Okay. So, I guess we're continuing to make progress towards availability of the viewer. I am going to make it available to the other chairman next week. It's the 18th, when it's the cross commission meeting. And again, I got a little presentation I want to share with you, get your agreement on. So we're making progress. Noah's been pretty good at getting this stuff done. So I would expect by our next meeting, we'll kind of have here's what's possible. The art of the possible is kind of where we're at right now in terms of reflecting easements in the viewer. Right? But that gives us the basis to add it to other documents.
Nice job, Tom. Get another gold star.
One more and he go to platinum?
One
On
more,
this
he's
one.
gonna ascend to heaven.
Right.
Whoa. Little religiosity. Okay. All right, moving along. It kind of feeds into the 30 by 30 status. Like these next 2 items. We're again still trying to get the inventory down and see how we get there. So easements was going to add something to it, we think. So we'll see where that winds up. But then it also gets to one of the open items was a definition of open space. So did we bring this up at the last meeting? I'm trying to remember where this came up.
Talked about it.
We've been talking about this for years.
Yeah, well, no,
Yeah,
sorry,
but
no, this is more specific. Okay, I remember how it came up. So it came up we wanted to get the ability to go public with the viewer. That get back to a discussion of the planning department didn't agree with the definition of open space, even though we used the POCD open space definition. So we resolved a little bit of that. Then the next one was, okay, then chartered by the town manager was a request that says, please come up with an updated agreement on open space that, reflects changes to federal, state laws, yada, 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 and would be the precursor to the 2026 POCD. So after some toing and froing, it was thrown to a cross commissioners meeting, and I'm going to use the meeting next week to see, who would like to participate in it and use that as the launching for, revising the definition of open space. So circle back to remember 4 years ago when we started this whole thing, we spent a year on that. So this is gonna be fun. Anyway, so I'm gonna hope to get that kicked off and identify which commissions want to participate with us in that, to meet that objective. We'll have to go more on that a little bit later. Then,
So you have a definition from the town that the town doesn't like. And now you're going to produce or try a group effort
well,
to
let's say
produce
there's
one they do
multiple
like.
definitions depending on.
Right. Well, in our plan, we had multiple definitions.
Correct, because
We
there's.
acknowledge that.
We acknowledge that there were multiple
Right.
definitions. And the question is, we want to get in sync with the state and the federal government, because then that generates or makes access grant money. Right? When you're talking about specific open space or greenways or whatever it is, you got to be specific to their definition because they're the one handing out the money. So there's a little pragmatic.
Does the town have copies of those that he's referring to and understanding, wanting to get the ability to get grant money by defining it appropriately? But are those definitions available out there now that the state, let's say the feds have been, is it something they've been working on, the feds, and all of a sudden, in the past year or
I
so?
wouldn't
they've
say
come
that
up
the
with-
feds have done anything, but the states
state
have been, and the town, and, they have applied for these grants, the
Yeah.
OSWA grants in particular, which has, which is based on the DEP definitions of protected and
Right.
type of things. Preserved and protected. There's two
So
different
you're trying to basically get everybody to agree to what word you're gonna put in the next P O C D.
Pretty much. But
Good
that's
luck.
kind of like the overriding document.
Yeah, because everybody can use that, and if you make it official there, then it takes out a lot of this other stuff.
Mishmash stuff.
Yeah,
Different commissions.
yeah, I mean, if we can get that and be happy, and have us be happy with it, that'd be great.
Well, that's why I would kind of raise
Yep.
the hand that says that we'd like to lead that effort.
Yeah,
And well, we'll see where that goes. Objectives, what happened? I didn't have that tagged. Interesting. Objectives. Section 7, here we go. There it is. So the next thing was section 7. Let me go to that.
So just to summarize that, you're in charge, you are chairing this, or is it the town manager chairing this group?
Well, which group? The town manager is chairing the cross commission group.
Okay.
At that session, one of the objectives was to create cross commission activities. Right? This is the one later on, I'm going to say, here are the ones I want to propose. That's going to be one of them.
Okay. I
Right?
just want to understand.
So that's where that is. So I'm assuming that was almost a no-brainer. I don't know how we could not want to do that. Now there's like 6 or 7 I had in there, and we can kind of talk about which ones should be brought up. So this is, I know, really teeny tiny string. This was from section 7, from that we kind of review every month. And
I have the best seat for you,
oh yeah,
except for
so
you.
well, I guess my question, well, green means I'm gonna take it off. So you look at either the ones that are blank or the yellow, which were updated on last time. Usually I kind of pull out of our discussions and update these. So my question is there something that we're gonna get to yours in a second? Is there something that we didn't yet discuss or won't discuss in the oncoming topic
I have nothing to add to
that
mine.
I should add? So we had
That's parcel team.
All right, so I was looking to the right over here. That was Kristen on. That was pathways, which you're gonna talk about. The next one is, that was Ann on.
Social.
Oh, yeah, Ann on social justice, Ann.
Yeah, so I sent you a map. So we did talk about access to open space. And I pulled up the bus routes. And I sent you a copy of that. I don't know if you can display it. And I think you can see that it's quite limited in terms of access to open space.
From the bus route.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what I did with that.
oh, I just sent you to an email today, this afternoon. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's probably not ready. And then I will plan on summarizing all of the data that I've collected. The other thing was just looking at just some economic factors and trying to kind of glean a bit of the social justice angle, which is more difficult, but there are maps out there that we can kind of use, I guess.
Okay, FYI, I found the email today,
Yeah.
but there's no maps attached to it.
There's nothing attached?
Nope.
Oh, well,
All right.
I can do it now.
Do you have it? She could
You can
give her,
share it. You can
does
share it.
she have control?
Hold on. Oh,
I can't believe I did that. Well, I can.
yeah, I do it quite frequently.
Yeah, you should be able to display.
Oh, me?
You're on as a panelist, you should be able to share your screen.
Oh. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, it's right on my screen. So how do I, or does Larry have to give me?
You're a co-host or something, Larry?
What's that?
Yeah,
Make her
if you
co-host.
hover your.
I don't control this.
No,
Yeah.
I control the host, but she should have it as a participant panelist.
Yeah, you should be able,
share.
if you hover down around near the bottom of the screen, if you.
Share
have-
screen. There it is.
There it is. Okay.
So
Okay.
this, sorry about that, Larry. So these are the bus routes. There are that are in Groton from the Southeastern seat AT group. And so you can, and there's some of the open space, it's not complete. I think there were some missing, but you can see that there's nothing in the eastern part of town or this northeast section. Certainly it would be very difficult to access Cop Park if you didn't have a car. In the city, it does go by Washington Park. And then it goes down. I was trying to figure out, is this Birch Plain right here? Or no,
It's Sparkle Lake.
it's Sparkle Lake. So that one looks like it is accessible. This is the golf course.
Through this.
That's the golf course, yes.
So that, that's recreation more than open space. Yeah, so you can see some of the big ones like Bluff Point, Haley Farm, Pequot, and Cop Park are.
Well, I think what point is access to
It's
that.
access. You get close enough to just walk down there.
Yeah, you have that.
Where you have the
boardwalk.
walkway right from Route 1.
Right. So I think that one, albeit.
Oh, this one? With this one right here.
Left,
Left
left,
point,
left,
Down.
down
down.
there.
The point, see, there's the stop that's on the board of it really
Yeah,
well.
there's a boardwalk right near that.
Oh,
spot.
right here.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's a park basically that
And
extends.
there's another park.
There's
with-
other, yeah, it doesn't show in green, which is interesting, so there should be.
I know, it's not complete.
You gotta use it?
No,
So-
those are parks, but the problem is that the base layer you're using here is probably taken from Google Maps or whatever. It's not taken from the town.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'll try and marry the two. and get a better picture. And that's kind of the same issue I'm having with trying to overlap like the bus routes and then also the economic income data over town, just to get an idea of that. But I'll figure out how to do it.
No, the bus route is very interesting. I mean, that visualizes it, so that's good.
Yeah.
It does allow us to kind of, to approach one of the town council members and say, hey, you're talking about access and equality, all of that stuff, is that, in order to do that, you're gonna need something like extended bus route, even if maybe it's on weekends, or it's, it doesn't necessarily, it's not a 9 to 5 thing. But, maybe there's something that can be done.
Right.
So, no, that like without the data, then it's kind of hard to make any proposal. So that's good on the bus routes. So, and what else were you doing? You had mentioned, sorry.
I also have a map. I probably don't have that handy. I think I just sent you that one. I can see if I can open. Oh, I think I don't even know which one it is. Maybe this one. Untitled. I was looking at basically some census data. Oh yeah, so here you start seeing median household income. I'm just gonna whip through this. This is poverty levels, and this is all from census data from the previous decade. So percentage of people living in poverty, living below the 200% federal poverty level, I think, or it's defined up there. I'll clean these up, but this I thought was interesting. Our median age is 21 to 34.
What if that's because of the
Yeah, maybe.
That surprised me.
Navy, college.
Yeah, I don't know. Percent of the population of people of color. So we're in a higher percentage, 20 to 32. That's as far as I got. Oh, there's a better map that I found too, the EJ map, environmental justice map that overlaps income with open space. Anyway, I was going to try and summarize some of this along with all of the other data that I showed last time with the city versus the town, and put it all in one place. And what I'll do is just send it to you, Larry, for feedback, and then we can decide what we want to do with it.
I'm kind of thinking there's two paths here. One would be, an update to our conservation plan, because that section, we kind of threw that in at the end.
Well,
It has some of this stuff.
yeah, some of
It has some of the stuff.
I didn't go into the bus
No,
stop.
the bus stops I thought was interesting.
Yeah, the
second one-
visual is good on the bus stops really help.
Yeah, the second one is, the second path would be to put some sort of extract and report to the town council that says, guys, you have to take action. I mean, we can't take action.
And
We're-
list the
We're just pointing it
proposed
out to you
actions.
and saying, we think that, if you're really talking about equality and balance, et cetera, you need to take some action. Right?
This
Now,
is
we
the,
might- Yep.
oh, sorry. This is the map I was thinking of. So this is from the EJ Environmental Justice website. And you can see the income ranges over different parts of the town. It's the same problem that not everything is on here. So it's really trying to get the most updated open space map from the town and then put these, redraw some of this into that.
Almost indecipherable, that map. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to see
Yeah,
where the
it's very
boundaries are, I
So-
guess
Yeah, so Ann, one of the things that I did was I took the open space map. We took the boundaries of the districts, the voting districts, where the reps are from. And then we aligned, remember, then we aligned them. That said, who's gonna sponsor, you're representing this district, or you're gonna sponsor the open spaces in your district. So that was kind of like, I think last year,
And we get a lot of
we did
feedback.
that. Well, we got at least one, we did get feedback, all right? I guess there was 40, I went to the 40 something
RTM
RTM members.
members.
And
You had somebody from every district.
we did get somebody from every district, like one. So you're talking 7, so
That's reasonable.
that's what we got that. So that work was kind of the first shot at it. So, but that map was interesting because now you want the RTM members, the thought was to get the RTM members to kind of focus on open space and kind of linking it back to I think now the bus thing is access, if you kind of overlay those, that kind of shows you that it's almost the reverse. There's less open space there, but there's more access. There's more open space here with no access. So it's kind of an interesting reversal
It really is.
of what's there. So that is available, Ann. So keep on chugging along. Let's we'll do our little subcommittee of 2 on that.
Okay.
And, we'll kind of keep chugging along there.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. What was they doing? That was
Stop share.
social justice. Let's see. Well, all of these we talked about that. Okay, we're getting into. I wasn't going to do solid waste this month.
Nope. Okay.
Nope. All right, so I think. That was objective 7. Then the next item on the agenda, so I'll go back and update that based upon the discussions and what I heard on the other sections and get that out. Then the next one was there was a Tom kind of did a cross section with complete streets.
Right, I've attended like 3 of their meetings so far. Andre Baumgartner is sponsoring this special working group with the Bike Groton folks and trying to draft up a complete street policy for the town. Right now in the my review, it's about 9 or 10 pages long. It's tailored after the one from Portland, Connecticut, because they've been recognized last year as the national standard for complete streets in one of the towns.
Wow.
So this policy is, now the guy that is doing a lot of this is Mr. Kent from Kent and Frost, because he's also the president of the Bike Groton, as well as being the architect for the town of Portland that wrote this thing. So it's been very easy for him to roll it over and take, but he's taking comments right now. And I reviewed it and provided a couple of comments. They're pretty, it was just how you deal with the city versus and what the complexity of, how much is this policy taking over? Because the city of Groton isn't included, the Groton Long Point isn't included because of all the zoning issues and how they handle all the public works aspects of the complete streets. So otherwise, I really didn't see anything that's directly related to the Conservation Commission mission in the policy, but I just wanted to point that we just said we'd talk a little bit about it here if anybody has interest or questions about it. But at this point, I will continue to monitor this the action as it goes forward, and when we see they're going to finalize at their next meeting. The final thing that's going to go from the town council will be referral to go through the process, and they'll have a whole public hearing and all this type of stuff on it before implementation. Then once they have a policy, then that could be then used for potential grants and stuff, and working with the state. Because I mean, a vast majority of what the problem areas are on state roads, whether it's Route 1, 184, wherever is where a lot of this stuff really is where the problem areas are. And so this before the state will, they demand that you have at least a policy, let alone an ordinance. The town of Portland has already gone and has gone the next step from a policy into an ordinance, which is more restrictive and all this type of stuff. But the policy at least gets you going. You don't have to follow it all 100% of the time, but the state will follow it. They will follow it if you have one. Okay, in regard to how that they start marking as they don't go off and start rebuilding streets, but as they're rebuilding, they'll take this into consideration. You had an ordinance that demanded you rebuild it, that'd be a different story. And as far as how they want to do things, but it's going policy first. But,
The net didn't look like there was action for us at the commission to take.
I couldn't find anything as far from our mission statement or charter.
Well, my contribution, like I was in that in the beginning, and my thing was just simply, if you're going to be digging something up and replanting, let's plant pollinators and natives. That's what I see as our connection with that. It's like, if you're gonna, for the whole town, it should be a policy for the town from here forward. Certain species, pollinating species, no
Well, in the case,
invasives.
it should be a higher emphasis on rain gardens, any sort of.
Speaking of
Speaking
such,
of, yeah.
you now have the floor.
Okay, so I think since we all met last time, I went out with Maura Roby and Heather Pilardi from the ECCD, Eastern Connecticut Conservation Commission. And Maura has gotten a grant to do rain gardens from Groton all the way up to Preston, like all the way through. So she's looking for locations in each town, and of course to try and link them together to make a pathway so the pollinators can get from one place to the other. So we scouted all around. We went around a lot of different places around Groton to kind of look for some locations. And so we did find like the first one, and she was also working off a study that was done by some college kids, I guess, studying this, had come up with some suggested spots. So just to get the ball rolling, we actually did get a spot, and it's actually, where the senior center is and the library, there's a hockey rink right there.
Yep.
Like right in front of that hockey rink, there's a depression and some storm drains that go right down to some water that's kind of nearby there. So seeing that it's visible, it's accessible, everybody can see it and appreciate it and stuff. So we're actually doing that this Thursday. She had the card a little bit before the course in terms of she had already told me to publicize it before she'd actually gotten permission from the town or an okay or buildings and grounds, but everything apparently is in place and plans ordered. So that's okay. So that's good. So we encourage everybody. You can see the little brochure that Heather put together.
Yep, it's in the agenda handout.
And it is the Conservation Commission. So any and all would be highly encouraged to join and come along, and it should, the more people, the less time it should take. So it's all prepped. And I think we have so far like 8 to 10 people signed up. So any more that come, and then I'm thinking maybe afterward go to Manana's and have some fun. So that's that.
I've got it on my list.
You do?
Yahoo!
Yahoo! She's looking for everybody. She's like, oh, I'm going to cancel. No one signed up. I said, trust me. There's a lot of people coming, but now they've all signed up officially. So that's good to know.
Okay, registration required. I missed that.
Not required. It's just, she just was wanted to know.
Background
if people were
checks.
coming.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think that's kind of, so we're kind of launched. We'll be meeting. We had a meeting. I think Bray came to that meeting. We just little informational meeting, and mostly at that meeting, the first meeting, there was a lot of people, and some people on Zoom couldn't get on. The second meeting was sort of like, everyone who didn't come to the first meeting was kind of at the second meeting. It was the compliment. So we have the Rockland, we have the beautification person is on board. We have a very nice mix of people.
So the talk is in the library.
Talks in the library, and the idea is the talk is from 3 to 4, and you go immediately outside and do it. So you can come to just the talk or just the planting or both or neither. And then I'm going to throw in going to Manana's maybe afterwards for a taco or something. I had a couple other things not related to the pollinator pathway thing. Oh, and also the other thing is we're getting people, individuals are signing up, registering their own properties with the official website thing. If you haven't already, if you do meet the criteria, then that's cool if you sign up. And there is overlap with invasive species on this thing, because one of the things is identifying and getting rid of invasive species. So there'll be some communication on that. Okay. So also, I think since we spoke, I spoke with David Aldrich at SCARA, but there wasn't much that we hadn't been told before. Nothing much new. We have two possible sites. One is too small. The second is too far set back. They're still.
Oh, they still don't
So
have their
Kristen,
site.
before you say, so for whoever's going to be watching this video and taking the minutes, the topic you're talking about now is
I'm
the
jumped.
composting.
I jumped this
Yeah,
comment.
but you need to tell what the topic is, so who's taking the minutes knows that.
Okay, person who's taken the minutes, I just jumped to composting conversation with David Aldrich. He did the two experiments. The results were excellent. He's got an engineering firm to test sites. They should have results at the end of June, which they should have by now because now it's July. There were two possible sites that he was looking at but they're not, he's not sure about when they do have a site, they're going to put up an RFP for construction. It's evolved a lot since February. They're looking for it to be central to the region. I can't read how to figure out. 10 acres of buffer. They want about 20 acres, about 10 acres of active and about 10 acres of buffer. They don't want too far back from the road. But anyway, he's not quite there yet, but I suggested to him, talk to John Reiner and talk to people in this town. And when you're ready, we're here for you. When you feel like you have something to work with, we're going to support you and push it and publicize it and help. But he's just not quite there yet. You know?
It's been slow going. And
Right.
We have talked it up with the town.
Yep.
But you're right, until there's something.
Something
we can
concrete
kind of
to help
concrete,
with.
It's tough to move forward.
Yeah, and we also had a conversation last time. I had a thing that I was supposed to do, which was, we were talking about having a presence at the fall fair.
Yes.
And I spoke with the people involved with that and that they don't have the fall fair anymore. They're having something else.
Well, yeah, we mentioned that at the Trails Task Force site,
Right.
challenge. This very basically said the Chamber of Commerce was co-host with them and they pulled out.
Yeah, and they're doing something at night instead. It's not really suitable. It's like unite, it's join the night or something. It's not suitable for a booth for the Conservation Commission. So we're off the hook for
That's
that.
too bad.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a good thing, but we'll do it somewhere else. That we'll find an Earth Fair or something next year. So I think that's yeah. That's what I have for now. High five. Okay.
Okay,
I've got one particular item that's not on the list. I didn't know where to drop it in.
all right, you can drop it in now.
All right. I am on the mailing list for CLCC. It's related to the land trust.
Land Conservation Commission.
And they just put out recently a report on exploring land conservation's impact on property taxes in New England. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read this, but one of the things that in our conservation plan, a big emphasis that Larry jumped in wholeheartedly is showing how open space is not a financial deficit to the town, and did a fantastic job putting all that together. The one thing that I hadn't seen before is if, you know, all the good reasons for having open space, but if you take a piece of property and take it off set it aside from privately owned to protected open space, it comes off the tax roll, what might be the impact? And this particular paper that was recently set out, they reviewed all of New England. They contacted 1,400 municipalities throughout the New England area. Harvard University and Amherst College and so forth put this report together. But the interesting thing is here, they actually have data showing what would happen if you take a piece of property, purchase it, and take it off the tax roll. What would be the overall impact on the town's budget going forward? And two things that came to mind out of this is one, the poorer the town, smaller the town, the bigger the impact on what it would cost the taxpayer to make up in the increase in their property taxes for the removal of this one particular piece of property to be set aside as open space and taking it off the tax rolls. So the smaller the area, the bigger the impact, which seemed to make sense. The other is that the impact only is about 3 years, and then it's a wash because of the changes in the taxes and so forth. And it was an interesting, they've got data to show, and basically they were talking about properties. We weren't talking about 25 acres, so we're talking about something like 85 acres, large properties, which we don't have that many left in town. We have 490s, but I don't know the number of 490s that are close to 100 acres, for instance. So a handful at best. So in reading this, it was an illustration that, yes, if you take a piece of property, take it off the tax rolls, there is a penalty in that other people, to keep the budget, let's say a balanced budget, your taxes have to go up a little bit. And they have percentages in here and they have data to back it up. And so
Yeah, send me that, because you're right. If it's a poor community versus a richer community, I didn't compare community
right.
wealth or size, but all the studies I looked at was the impact of taxes going up on surrounding homes because of open space of higher value, kind of made up for it. And also on the negative side is the utility, the cost of the town to support a single family home
That's what I was thinking.
exceeds
It
the
doesn't take
taxes
into
that you got
account.
anyway.
Right.
So
It doesn't take that other
it-
thing into
yeah,
account.
so it looks like this kind of overlaps.
Right.
It doesn't, yeah, I'm gonna say it's not a disagreement, but I'd have to pick the piece out of that that says Groton is at least in our end of state, a higher income on average community. We take it all together. But there is a relationship, and I'd have to see the details to see what's up.
Well, I thought this is one where we've always defended the importance of open space, and the data that you came up with, just as you said, if you live closer, you live to open space, it's a positive value to the value of your property.
Which raises the assessment value, which raises the
Taxes.
versus what you lost. I mean, so it's
Right.
it's a trade-off.
And this was just simply, here's a piece of property that is now collecting taxes. Now we take it off the table. It's not collecting taxes anymore. What happens to the town's budget for that coming year? And this is just some of the data for that. So I thought it was an interesting exercise in that.
Well, I'd like to see, I mean, it's actually what happened on the Noank property. Right?
Right.
That, the school. So that whole discussion was, oh, we're gonna lose out on all this money. And I went in and said, no, you're not.
Right.
All right, it's actually was gonna increase the tax.
But I
burden
thought
by
that this
actually
might be, I'll send it on to you
building-
and then make it, just put it as a reference, in our documents of,
No, what I've been doing is, as I've been getting information such as this, I put it into the next version, per se, of the open space plan. I've been keeping areas like that, because we do need to keep that current, per se. And this, I'll definitely take a look at this and see if there's applicability into that, or else, and then you can take a look at the
Yeah,
model.
kind of more in the model thing, but it's not, Now, there's a lot of it, you're looking at 1,000 pounds, you're looking at one. Right, so,
The real question is, it got me thinking, what you're saying is this, now that we've had the reassessment of, did we actually see what you predicted happen to the properties around there? If I was to go in today.
That's a good
Oh, that'd be a
question.
very interesting
well, the
exercise.
tax rate went down.
The mill
rate
rates,
went down.
that's the irrespective, and the assessments, did the assessments go up around there?
Yeah.
I don't know if they did or they didn't. It's something to go
Everybody's-
take a look
didn't
at.
They all went up.
Everybody's taxes went up.
Oh, everybody.
Yeah, it's the question went up more than that. Yeah, so, yeah, that would take a bit more interesting study.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know if you captured all, the
I
necessary data
did.
to have that.
In certain parcels, I did. I
Yeah.
went around and looked at what was there
Yeah.
and then said, here's like the average,
Oh, okay.
right? But those, when I did the specific analysis of the property, like the no acre.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Knowing would be a good validator because.
So, yeah, so one could go back and look at the new one that say, okay, here's what I found before. And now here's what it is. So I can't, let me put that as a,
Well, I'll send a copy,
Yeah.
the link to this
The link,
to you
yeah.
guys.
now are the new assessments all in the system?
Because you got built to
Mm. New assessments,
That'd be a project for students to
no,
call, the, like, work on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just don't know if you can get the old data,
That's the problem.
the old
Old
assessments.
assessment.
And it
I
was,
would think somebody had a snapshot. And, I mean, that would be normal IT processes, but who knows?
I don't know how there's some magic goes out between assessor office and NOAA there that,
Question mark assessment.
but I know that when you go, but when you're showing your bill, the assessments are there, the new assessments,
All right, well, I'll ask Mary if the assessment history is available.
assessment history, yeah.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah.
And then-
This is one property that we've been monitoring and stuff that would be interesting. to take a
Yeah, no,
look
I
at.
mean, that one I know, I've got the data plus a few
Yeah,
others.
I know you did.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Report you a bunch of stuff. So I did reach out to the planning department on how can we help on OSWA grants this year? And the response was, we're not doing any.
Oh, well, there you go.
And it was, well, we're still doing work, we're doing these other things.
You
So,
can't get a new one if you still have one outstanding.
so they're, it's not what he said, but he says, we're kind of, we just got through one, we're not gonna do one this year. Because I was saying is that, what can we do to help? So to speak. So just the FYI, they're not pursuing one this year. I think the target was like July or August anyway. So one of the things we should kind of put on our thought process for next year. I understand, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the plate and their staffing is, they're understaffed, et cetera, et cetera. Two other things is in the interim, since we didn't have a meeting and I didn't think it required a special meeting, I was asked to support, with the Conservation Commission support, an ARPA funding for permeable pavements. And I did put that letter in the handout. And I felt that it was safe for me to go out on a limb and say that, yes, we support permeable pavement.
Did good, Barry.
So I said, no, I will, for the commission, I will take it upon myself to write a letter. Now, it was for a pilot program, right? So, but I kind of read through it. I went, well, it's limited and therefore, we're talking about, I think it was like less than an acre. I can't remember now what I
1.1
calculated.
acres.
Yeah, I went through their things and calculated, it was like 1 acre. So at least it'll give us information. So that was one thing. The other thing was,
Just to back up on that,
I'm sorry.
that has been a discussion in the Conservation Commission in the past. So, and we supported it.
No, I
So-
did, yes, I did know, I didn't think it was an issue. I just
No,
kind of
no.
letting you know that.
So it wasn't the first, this is not the first time.
But I think in one thing, I actually said it
Good job.
incorrectly in my letter. I think I said impervial. Well, pavement, I had to correct it. Anyway, it was the data center. So then the day before the zoning commission was meeting on that data center ordinance thing, the delay,
Moratorium?
the moratorium thing. So I was asked by the town staff is, could I weigh in? So I thought about, we did have a discussion, we did put a memo in before, so I did put a letter in to the zoning commission, which basically kind of restate a lot, I put more details in about data centers, and I made the point that says, look, guys, your definition is sorely missing because, and I went through, a data center could be, a closet, right? It could, I mean, what the heck are you talking about? You can't sit there and tell people that you're not going to be able to have them build out an existing data center and add another 1,000 square feet. So I suggested that they insert in there a better definition and to say that it only starts at a level, and I said 100,000 because that's the average data center size. It was 100,000 square feet. So they wound up saying it, but they reduced it to 5,000. So they didn't kind of go as far as I had suggested. Because the issue was on a super data center. So why are you worrying about a 5,000 square foot data center, for God's sakes? Yeah. Anyway,
Once they get
that's
a piece of land, they add and they add and they add. That's what they do. They get a piece of land and they build one and then they
you still have to come back for another zoning ordinance.
maybe that's why they're talking about a bigger number,
Yeah, this is a moratorium. No, never mind. I mean, but I'm not, there's a whole legal issue that says, really? I mean, it's commercial property and all this other stuff. So I think there's a couple sides to this whole thing. Anyway, where it wound up was they did put a moratorium in for a year and they have hired a group to, I can't remember the name, but come out and provide a recommendation on what it should be. So hopefully when that starts to come out, we will be able to look at it and it should have like green build, things that we talked about before. And I assume we will have, no, I shouldn't assume. We will push ourselves in there and say, we want, the ability to voice our opinion on whatever they come up with. So we'll have to watch that. The other thing we talked about all right, so let me bring up my presentation. The cross-country commission news. Where's that? Share screen. PowerPoint. Where's my PowerPoint? Not there. Okay. Let's see if I do slideshow. Oops.
Can I ask one thing going forward? That we use the gender neutral chair rather than chairman as labels?
Which who?
chair.
Chair instead of chairman.
Oh, you like man?
No,
Oh.
we love men, but we don't want man as a tag on a position of president is non-gender specific. Chair,
Change to chair.
you got it, good.
And vice chair.
Okey dokey.
No argument from
Um,
the vice chair.
let's see, so. Oh, there's something I gotta do in order to be able to show this, but it's not that big a deal.
Cross commission, that's the new name for
That's what he,
chairperson's meeting that used to
yeah,
have.
that's what it said in the memo to me, so I don't know.
I think that's such a good idea.
So, the two topics is gonna be the Conservation Commission Charter and Focus. Basically to remind them of what our job is, and what we're doing, and then areas of collaboration, which was the topic that was asked to bring forward. So this is stuff you've seen before, all right? This
It's
is.
not showing on the screen.
Yeah, you're not scrolling through it all.
Hold on.
There we go.
Let's try this. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. And let me make this bigger. Oops, too big.
Now, when is this meeting?
The 18th.
She just sent this to us before, so we had to look at it rather than. Did you?
No, I did not want to put it in the,
Oh,
okay.
it's out there now.
You know, how many people look at our webs?
Everybody, now that they
Yeah,
know that this
everybody.
is on here.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Everybody, did you hear?
So. So this is nothing more than a restatement of what the charter says and what we're supposed to do, right? So there should be no new news on that one for you guys. Then what I did is that we're gonna focus on two items that we worked on, right? Index of all open spaces and research into utilization of land areas, and advertise and prepare, publish stuff, which gets to the viewer, by the way, right? So that's why I'm saying that's,
I hope there's more in there, but what about like our plastic work and all this stuff? Doesn't really, is there somewhere in their charter that says we're supposed to be doing something?
Nope.
Not in our charter.
not my code.
In our charter, but we've been tasked through the,
Good,
from the
okay.
town councilors.
Good, okay.
Either the mayor or a town councilor have come to us and asked us to please pursue this area under the generic title of conservation.
Okay.
So it's two different things. One is what we've done versus what our job is supposed to be. And this last one, may supervise or manage town-owned open spaces or park property, that gets into our whole stewardship program, right? So
On
So-
delegation.
I understand.
I'm recognizing it.
Okay, I mean, so, because we're not a decision-making body, we recommend stuff, right? As they say. Isn't that not going forward? Deep down, there we go. So then I went a little bit more on our focus areas in 2022, which was, repeating the index, and this is where I was publishing the link to the viewer. Right, and kind of went through 14 layers and verification, yada, yada, yada. And I suppose I should add in here something dealing with, since this seems to have come up, and easements. All right, so let me there. So again, we're still in the stuff in the past. And on this one, the focus area number 2, and this is talking about the website we put together, conservation website. It's kind of what it is, information on what we're doing. And this is out of that website, right? These are the listings of, I'm now thinking, given our discussion,
You can take off the one that's not.
should I take out Maple Glen?
Yes, I would think so.
We approved it. I mean, it's
I know we approved it.
it's
Well,
fine.
I don't know
put
that
it in
anybody's
quotes.
gonna really notice.
So no, that I
We,
agree.
the town council says that they've approved and so we're in that process, okay? We can't go implement anything on it until the deed's in place, but there's nothing wrong with having a stewardship plan for it.
And it's a list.
It's a
It's a
list.
working list.
All right. All right.
Live.
All right, so that's more informational. Oh, geez. Okay, so now this is the chart that is where we're at. So I had 5 items. And I mentioned this is definition of open space for 2026. So I mentioned that. The other thing, and they kind of said, Jake, can you give us your top 2? So this is now the disposition of land not supported by currently not supported by legal protection. And that gets to the discussion we had earlier about the committee to review properties and that kind of stuff. So I keep wanting to insert the Conservation Commission into that process. Now, the protection of Penny Island, that's the one we had earlier, so I'll kind of move the bar down.
I was gonna say, I don't think that one raises up to that meeting coming up. That's a nice,
Well,
that's a discussion with us in the Shellfish Commission, but not necessarily.
Well, no, I was just directed to, at this meeting, to throw it, to give them the memo with the meeting, so.
I think putting all 5 on there is not a problem. I don't know if I'd just get rid of the bar. To be honest with you, I don't think you're gonna get, the other commissions are gonna have much on the table, so we might as well go in and ask for what we can.
Okay, so I mean, so that's a straightforward one. So this is the mechanism to go do that, and I'll have a handout. To the,
But if you want to put that as number, lower on the priority list compared to pollinators and solid waste, yeah,
it's not a biggie, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
but I think we
Some
should.
of these, at least in the format previous, that I used to attend. If there was a hot issue that would involve other commissions who, at that point of the meeting, weren't aware of perhaps a particular item that was going on in the town, it was a chance to spread the word. Most of the time when you came to these meetings, it was more of, what is the town doing? What is the planning department doing? What are their public works, perhaps, larger projects that overlap into the different commissions that may have input into it? And not everybody would know, unless you were on the top of the list of notifications, you would know much about what's going on.
I would say that kind of like an ongoing normal thing that makes sense. This one was, since they haven't run it in a long
Right.
time, it was, tell me how, and specifically, tell me how you want to work with the, other commissions.
Well, this is, right. So,
Is what they asked for.
right. So this is, you're right.
So I'm doing both, actually. I said, here's kind of stuff
This is
we're
what
working
we're,
on, but
and-
here's where,
Right.
we want to look at. So I'm looking for, I guess this is the page of recommendations on this. So I heard agreement on 1. 2, we talked about a long time. This one was for you.
Children of the island?
No, not that
No.
stewardship.
Stewardship of pollinator gardens.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Oh, you had it highlighted, so it's.
yeah, no, I was just moving it down. It's like, took away the line.
well, certainly reduction of solid waste, because the plastic ordinance.
And
Yeah.
and when we're gonna get into the composting eventually.
This is things that we want other commissions to help us
To work with us
work
on.
with us on.
Right, so that's the question on the table. So the first 3, I guess, we've talked about are fairly straightforward. We haven't really talked about working with other commission members on solid waste per se. In the last, the Penny Island ones is the minor one. So I don't know, any suggestions, or I'll clean this up and go with that?
I think it's a good starting
I
point.
do too.
All right, I will.
One of the things, it happens to be an issue that I had over time, is that we used to be notified on property owners along the coastline doing any sort of work, water side. And I see people putting in new docks over in the city of Groton at Jupiter Point. But we used to be on the mailing list for any of those approvals, or actually it wasn't approval, but there's DEP would put out a proposal. This is the person's proposal. And it goes into what they would like to do. And we're asking any comments. Do you see any concerns that should be part of this document? And we used to comment on a lot of them. For instance, are there active eelgrass beds there? Is there erosion control methods, and however you're setting up, connecting the dock to the land side and so forth. And so once in a while, I'll see pile drivers out there putting in something for a private home and saying, you know, you just don't see the announcements anymore. Now, it could be something out of DEP, they're just not doing anymore. But we used to see them for the Thames River, for Mystic
So
River.
Notification of water side.
So these are state DEP announcements and for a hearing or public comments.
For public comments on a, so you want
They're in the newspaper. I see those, the DEP's posting those in the New London Day.
well, this used to be, when they sent them out, it would actually have a drawing of the docks.
Oh, so it goes the full packet.
Full packet. We would see the full packet. We would see where it's going to attach to the coastline, where the adjoining property owners are. A lot of it was done by the consulting firm in Mystic, Daco,
Daco, yeah.
Daco.
Yeah.
and they did a
Here are
great
the
job.
packages typically, right?
Yeah, they're the go-to guys for that sort of a package. And that's pretty much their work, is what you would see from DEP. And it would, DEP, if it required anything with Army Corps, Federal Army Corps and so forth, they roll it into the permit. It's not two separate permits. DEP deals with meeting the Army Corps' concerns, but then putting it out on the local level and so these were waterside and not something that was on land, where zoning commissions and planning commission, inland wetlands, that would get involved with those. But the ones on the coastline tend to hang out there. And so we were active with that.
So that's more of a question. Who's
Who's getting those
Who's getting
packages?
those
and
Getting
packages?
those
reviewing?
packets, right?
I'm guessing that, in those, back in the day, everything was on paper. And now I'm guessing it's all digital, so it's probably posted in some place where a concerned party can see it, but they're not sending it to everybody, like nobody sends anything to
Well,
everybody.
sometimes I've gone to their website to look up something, because I've heard someone said, oh, this marina is going to double in size. You know, okay. So where's the plans for this? And you go to DEP and it's difficult to go through there, and they may have something that passed 3 years ago. And they've got a 5-year window to make it happen. But there's very little limited information there. So you're absolutely right. It could be now just maybe they're notifying the town digitally, and then it just stalls out. It goes into the.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the DEP website, and they're talking about permitting process and what to expect. You know, there's a general permit and then a certificate of permission and
Right.
compilation. It takes probably 90 days, and then permit files and mail, yada, yada, yada. And so it goes back and forth, the US Corps, like you said, and stuff. You're asking where this package that gets public. I recall seeing a little in the New London Day, and every so often you'll see this is permit or umpty frats, and it's posted, and then there's like a DEP website you could go to if you wanted to comment on it. They may be getting around it that way.
Could be. Could be.
Why do I should be wasting my time with sending these packages to everybody and stuff?
Well, you don't have to send the package, you can send a link.
Yeah.
I mean, a notification.
Well, they're saying they're getting more, we have to have go out to the public, so I'm posting it in the London Day. That's official notification.
Yeah, Which is like 10% of the population actually reads that.
Right, but that's the official
Yeah.
process. So if we,
All right, I can add that in the question for this.
is I think the other commissions looking at it, like inland wetlands or planning and zoning, or is it, whose responsibility is it?
That's the question.
Somebody should be getting those, somebody should be looking at
Somebody
it,
should do that.
whether it's us or somebody else in the town.
Right.
There should be some awareness of what's going on, not just on the land, like with data centers, but like, Spicer's is being sold, and who knows what they're gonna plan to do there. There's,
Right.
someone should be getting.
All right.
that was the end of the agenda. Does anyone have any additional business to bring up?
Will we adjourn?
That's new business. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Oh, Ann came in belatedly, so that's unanimous to adjourn the meeting at 7:02. So that's exactly 2 hours. Very good. All right.
I look forward to seeing most of you on Thursday. Our official Conservation Commission event.
Did you stop the recording?
I will now. Are you
Mm,
coming in on Thursday? Bye. I'm not sure, really. I'm reading your lips. Not too bad, right?
yeah, not too bad.
Okay, and